The first thing Zara Nightwind felt was the cold. It seeped through her skin like liquid mercury, awakening nerve endings that had been dormant for months. The stasis pod hissed as it depressurized, and harsh white light flooded her vision. She tried to move, but her limbs felt weighted down, muscles atrophied from the long sleep. "Easy," a voice said, soft and melodic, unlike any human voice she'd ever heard. The awakening process is always difficult. Zara's eyes gradually focused on the figure standing beside her pod. He was tall and ethereal, his form seeming to shift, slightly at the edges like heat waves rising from summer pavement. His skin held a subtle luminescence, pale silver with veins of light that pulsed gently beneath the surface. Most striking were his eyes' deep violet pools that seemed to hold starlight within them. "Who?" she croaked, her throat raw from the stasis drugs. "My name is Keth," he said, offering her a cup of something warm. "Keth Silvermoon. And you are?" "Zara Nightwind, the xenobiologist who supposedly betrayed the crystalline collective." The memories crashed back like a tidal wave. The peace negotiations on Nexus Station, the sudden explosion in the Crystal Gardens, the accusations, the trial where no one would listen to her protests of innocence, the sentence, indefinite stasis. While they decided her ultimate fate, supposedly, she managed to ask, accepting the cup with shaking hands. The liquid tasted like starfruit and something floral she couldn't identify. Keth's expression remained calm, but she caught something. In those violet eyes a flicker of certainty. "My people are called the Veil Walkers. We exist partially in what you call normal space and partially in the energy dimension. We can read the truth that lives in a being's energy signature." He paused, studying her face. "You are innocent, Zara Nightwind. Your energy patterns hold no deception regarding the attack on Nexus Station." Relief flooded through her so intensely that tears sprang to her eyes. For the first time in months, someone believed her. "Then why haven't you told them? Why am I still?" "Because," Keth interrupted gently, "the truth is more complex than simple innocence. Someone with considerable power wanted you silenced, and they will not hesitate to eliminate witnesses to their deception." Zara looked around for the first time, taking in her surroundings. They weren't on the prison transport where she'd been, placed in stasis. This was somewhere else entirely, a small chamber with walls that seemed to be made of crystallized energy, pulsing with soft blues and purples. "Where are we, my ship?" Keth replied, the whispered dream. "I acquired you from the transport while it passed through the nebular gates. You kidnapped me?" A ghost of a smile crossed his features. "I prefer liberated. The transport was taking you to the void prisons of Kepler-4 for to be. No one returns from there, Zara Nightwind, innocent or guilty." She set down the cup, her mind racing. "Why? Why would you risk this for someone you don't even know?" Keth was quiet for a long moment, his form shimmering slightly more than before. Something she was beginning to realize indicated emotional disturbance in his species. "Because I have spent my existence observing truth and falsehood, watching as lies destroy lives while those who should protect the innocent stand by. And because," he hesitated, his luminous skin darkening, "because when I first read your energy signature, I felt something I had never experienced before." "What?" "Resonance." The word hung in the air between them like a physical thing. "My people mate for life, but the choosing is not random. We seek those whose energy patterns complement our own, creating harmony from discord. It is rare to find such resonance across species." Zara's breath caught. The implications of his words were staggering. "You're saying we're compatible?" I am saying that your innocence was not the only reason. I could not let you disappear into the void prisons." Keth moved closer, and she could feel warmth radiating from his form. "I am saying that in all my travels across the galaxy, I have never encountered energy patterns that sang to mine the way yours do." She should have been frightened, should have demanded he return her to proper authorities, should have rejected this strange attraction to an alien being. Instead, she found herself drawn to him, to the honesty in his voice and the gentle strength in his presence. "The galaxy thinks I'm guilty," she said softly. "The galaxy is wrong." Keth knelt beside her, close enough that she could see the intricate patterns of light beneath his skin. "But proving your innocence will be dangerous. There are those who have invested much in your guilt. Then why not just run? Hide somewhere in the outer systems. Because, Keth said, his violet eyes intense, running will not clear your name. And more importantly, it will not stop whoever framed you from doing it again to someone else. Zara looked into those starlight eyes and felt something shift inside her, a sense of rightness she hadn't felt since before her world fell apart. What do you propose we do? We find the truth, Keth said simply. Together. The word together resonated through her bones like a tuning fork. For the first time in months, Zara Nightwind felt hope. Keth Silvermoon had always been able to see truth. It was the gift and curse of his people. The Veil Walkers existed simultaneously in physical reality and the energy dimension, making deception impossible to hide from them. But as he watched Zara sleep in the healing alcove of his ship, he realized that truth could be more complicated than he'd ever imagined. Her energy signature pulsed with a soft golden light, unmarred by the dark stains that guilt would leave. Yet beneath that innocence, he sensed something else, a deep loneliness that mirrored his own, and a strength that had been tested but never broken. When he'd first encountered her stasis pod during the transport's passage through the nebular gates, the resonance between their energy patterns had been so sudden and intense that he'd nearly lost cohesion. Veil Walkers were not supposed to form attachments to solid beings. His people floated through space like living auroras, touching briefly on planets and stations before moving on. They observed, they recorded, but they did not interfere, certainly. They did not steal prisoners from Galactic Authority transports. Yet, here he was, watching over Zara Nightwind like she was the most precious thing in the universe. The ship's proximity alerts chimed softly, jolting him from his thoughts. 3 vessels approaching fast. Galactic Authority pursuit ships, their energy signatures blazing with aggressive intent. Somehow, they'd tracked the whispered dream despite his careful route through the shadow lanes. Zara, he called softly, his form brightening with urgency. You need to wake up. Her eyes opened immediately, alert despite having been asleep moments before. A soldier's instinct. What is it? We're being hunted. Keth moved to the control interface, his fingers dancing across panels that responded to his bioelectric field. 3 ships, military grade. They'll be within weapons range in 7 minutes. Zara was already moving, pulling on the simple gray jumpsuit he'd provided. Can we outrun them? Not in normal space. Keth's form flickered as he channeled more energy into the ship's systems. But there's a debris field near here, the remains of an ancient battle between the architects and the void spawn. If we can reach it, I can phase us partially into the energy dimension, partially enough to become invisible to their sensors, but not enough to lose physical cohesion entirely. He hesitated, his luminescence dimming. It's dangerous. If I lose control, we could be torn apart across dimensions. Zara moved to stand beside him, her presence warm and solid. I trust you. The simple statement hit him like a solar flare. In all his existence, no one had ever offered him such unconditional faith. His people trusted in patterns and probabilities, not in individuals. But this human, this woman who barely knew him, was willing to risk dimensional dissolution based on nothing more than his word. The ship shuddered as the first warning shots blazed past them. Keth poured more energy into the engines, feeling the whispered dream respond like an extension of his will. The debris field appeared ahead, a chaotic maze of twisted metal and crystallized energy from weapons that had burned out stars. There, Zara pointed to a massive derelict hull, easily the size of a small moon. Can you get us inside that? Keth's eyes widened with admiration. Where he saw only obstacles and dangers, she saw opportunity. Yes, but the radiation levels will mask our energy signature even more. She was already moving to the secondary control station. My xenobiology training included starship operations. Tell me what you need me to do. Working together, they piloted the ship through the treacherous debris field. Keth found himself marveling at Zara's intuitive understanding of 3's dimensional navigation. She anticipated his moves, compensating for the ship's responses before he even asked. It was as if they were connected on a level deeper than conscious thought. They slipped inside the derelict through a breach in its hull. Just as the pursuit ships reached the field's edge, Keth immediately began the phase transition, feeling reality blur around them as he shifted their existence partially into the energy dimension. The process was exhausting, maintaining physical coherence, while existing in multiple dimensional states required constant focus. Keth, Zara's voice sounded distant, ethereal. He realized with alarm that the phase shift was affecting her as well. Her solid form was becoming translucent, her life force beginning to scatter across dimensions. Without thinking, he reached out and grasped her hand, pouring his own energy into her to anchor her existence. The contact sent shockwaves through both of them, not just physical, but something far more profound. For an instant, he felt what she felt, her fear, her determination, her growing feelings for him. And she, he realized, was experiencing his own emotions in return. The connection stabilized her, but at a cost. Maintaining the phase shift while anchoring another being pushed Keth to his limits. He felt his own coherence beginning to slip, his consciousness spreading thin across dimensions. "No," Zara whispered, somehow understanding what was happening. "Don't sacrifice yourself for me. I cannot lose you," he managed to say, his voice echoing strangely in the phase space. "Not when I have finally found." She silenced him by pressing her now translucent lips to his. The kiss was impossible. She was solid. He was energy. They existed in different states of being, yet somehow it worked, their connection transcending physical laws. Through that kiss, she gave him her strength, her will to survive, her absolute faith in their bond. Together, they held the phase shift until the pursuit ships finally gave up their search and departed. Only then did Keth allow them to fully return to normal space. They collapsed onto the ship's deck, solid once more but fundamentally changed by the experience. "What just happened to us?" Zara asked, her voice shaking. Keth struggled to find words for something that had no precedent in his people's experience. "A melding," he said finally, "but not just of energy, of essence, of souls. If you believe in such things, I do now." She reached for his hand, and when their fingers intertwined, soft light pulsed between them. "Is this what your people call mating?" "No," Keth admitted, his form brightening with something that might have been joy. "This is something entirely new, something that perhaps has never existed before between our species." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, hands joined, sharing energy and warmth in the shadowy interior of the ancient derelict. Finally, Zara spoke. "They'll keep hunting us. The Galactic Authority won't give up. Then we need to find evidence of your innocence before they find us," Keth replied. "I've been analyzing the energy traces from the explosion on Nexus Station. There are anomalies, signatures, that don't match any known human technology." Zara's eyes sharpened with professional interest. "What kind of anomalies?" "Phase displacement weapons. Highly illegal, incredibly rare. Only a few organizations in the galaxy have access to that technology. Then we hunt the hunters," Zara said, her voice growing hard with determination. "We find out who really destroyed the Crystal Gardens and why they wanted me to take the blame." Keth smiled, his luminescence brightening. In that moment, he realized that his solitary existence was over. Whatever happened next, whatever dangers they faced, he would face them with this remarkable woman who had somehow become the other half of his soul. The hunt for truth was about to begin. Jay Stormheart had tracked fugitives across 3 star systems and 17 moons, but he'd never encountered a quarry quite like this. The bounty on Zara Nightwind was substantial enough to buy his own ship and retire from the hunting business forever. But 3 weeks into the chase, he was beginning to wonder if the credits were worth the growing unease in his gut. The cantina on Freeport Station reeked of recycled air and cheap synthahol, but it was the kind of place where information flowed as freely as the liquor. Jace nursed his drink, listening to the chatter of smugglers, merchants, and other bounty hunters. His weathered face, scarred from years of dangerous work, gave nothing away as he processed every conversation. Saw a ship matching that description. Near the Kepler debris field, energy signatures were all wrong, like something out of phase. Galactic authorities offering triple rates for any information. Jace's enhanced hearing, a legacy of cybernetic implants from his military days, caught fragments from across the room. But it was the bartender's offhand comment that made him pause. "Strangest thing," the Altarian said, polishing a glass with 4 of his 6 arms. Had a customer a few cycles back. Claimed he saw two figures walking through the market district on Titan Base. Said one of them was glowing like a star, but when he blinked, they were gone. Jace set down his drink. Titan Base was a mining operation. In the outer rim, barely a blip on most navigation charts. But it had something most places didn't: a black market dealer who specialized in phase displacement technology. As he left the cantina, Jace's comm unit chimed with an encrypted message from his employer. The client remained anonymous, as was standard in his line of work, but their resources were clearly extensive. The message contained new intelligence, energy readings from the Whispered Dream's last known location, ship manifests from several stations, and most interesting of all, classified files on something called the Veil Walkers. Jace studied the data as his ship, the Iron Resolve, jumped to hyperspace toward Titan Base. The Veil Walkers were apparently energy-based life forms, capable of existing in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, the files were heavily redacted. But one thing was clear: they were considered dangerous by Galactic Authority standards. Yet as Jace read deeper into the reports, something didn't add up. Every encounter with Veil Walkers described them as observers, never interfering in solid matter affairs. So why would one risk everything to help an accused terrorist? Titan Base orbited a dying star, its mining platforms extracting rare minerals from the stellar wind. The station itself was a ramshackle collection of habitat modules and industrial equipment, held together by magnetic fields and sheer stubbornness. Jace docked at the civilian port and made his way through crowded corridors filled with miners, traders, and the kind of people who didn't ask questions. He found his contact in a parts shop buried deep in the station's industrial section. Vex Nightshade was a Centaurian with cybernetic eyes and a reputation for discretion. More importantly, she was one of the few dealers in the galaxy who could acquire phase displacement weapons. Jace Stormheart, Vex said without looking up from the disruptor rifle she was calibrating. Heard you were chasing shadows in the outer rim. Not shadows, a woman and her alien friend. Jace slid a credit chip across the counter. I'm told they might have been asking about phase tech. Vex's cybernetic eyes whirred as they focused on the chip. That's a lot of credits for a simple question. It's a complex answer. The Centaurian pocketed the chip and activated a privacy screen around their conversation. Had visitors 2 days ago. Human woman, dark hair, scientist type. Her companion. Vex paused, her expression troubled. Never seen anything like him. Energy being, but stable in our dimension. They wanted information about phase displacement. Signatures, specifically how to trace them. Jace felt his pulse quicken. What did you tell them? Truth. That kind of tech leaves quantum residue. If you know what to look for, you can backtrack the signature to its point of origin. Vex leaned forward. But here's the interesting part: they already had samples. Residue from some kind of explosion. Did they say where they got it? Nexus. Station. From the Crystal Gardens incident. Vex's expression darkened. Jace, I don't know what you're mixed up in, but that woman isn't running because she's guilty. She's running because she's trying to prove she's innocent. The words hit Jace like a physical blow. In 15 years of bounty hunting, he'd developed an instinct for guilt and innocence. Guilty targets ran scared, made mistakes, left sloppy trails. Innocent ones, the rare few who were genuinely wrongly accused, they ran smart. They planned. They investigated. Zara Nightwind was running smart. Back on his ship, Jace accessed the classified files on the Nexus Station incident. His military clearance, though expired, still granted him access to certain databases. What he found made his blood run cold. The official report blamed Zara's research team for accidentally destabilizing the crystal formations during a diplomatic ceremony. But buried in the technical appendix, he found energy readings that didn't match the narrative. The phase displacement signatures were too precise, too controlled to be accidental. This had been a deliberate attack, carefully planned and executed. And according to the timestamps, Zara Nightwind had been in her quarters, 3 levels away, when the explosion occurred. Jace stared at the data for a long time, feeling the comfortable certainty of his worldview cracking apart. He'd built his career on bringing criminals to justice, on being one of the good guys in a galaxy full of darkness. But if Zara was innocent, His comm unit chimed with another message from his anonymous employer. The tone was different this time, more urgent, more threatening. They wanted updates on his progress. They wanted results. And they were offering an additional bonus for bringing in Zara Nightwind alive. But unable to communicate, the implications were crystal clear. Someone wanted Zara silenced permanently, and they were using him to do it. Jace made a decision that would change the course of his life. Instead of setting course for Zara's last known location, he began tracing the source of his employer's messages. The trail led through a maze of shell companies and encrypted relays. But his military-grade hacking software eventually cracked the code. The messages were originating from a corporate facility on New Geneva headquarters of Stellar Dynamics, one of the galaxy's largest mining conglomerates. The same company that had been bidding for exclusive mineral rights. In the Crystalline Collective's territory, the pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The peace treaty between humans and the Crystalline Collective would have granted mineral rights to a consortium of companies, not just Stellar Dynamics. But if the negotiations failed, if the Collective blamed humans for the attack on their sacred gardens, Stellar Dynamics would be the only human company with existing contracts. In collective space, Jace felt a rage building in his chest that he hadn't experienced since his military days. He'd been used, manipulated into hunting an innocent woman so that corporate executives could maintain their profit margins. The woman he was supposed to capture hadn't betrayed anyone she'd been betrayed. He opened a new navigation plot, setting course for the last confirmed sighting of the Whispered Dream. But this time, he wasn't hunting Zara Nightwind to capture her. He was hunting her to warn her. The Iron Resolve jumped to hyperspace, carrying a bounty hunter who had just become something he'd never expected to be, a protector of the innocent. Behind him, encrypted messages from Stellar Dynamics went unanswered, their hired gun no longer responsive to their commands. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the hunter had become the hunted's ally, and for the first time in years, Jace Stormheart felt like one of the good guys again. The game had changed. Now it was time to change the rules. Nyx Shadowbane had always believed that survival required sacrificing others before they could sacrifice you. Standing in her executive suite aboard Stellar Dynamics' flagship facility, she watched the holographic display tracking 3 separate ships converging on the same coordinates in the Kepler sector. Her carefully constructed plan was beginning to unravel. The phase displacement device she'd used to destroy the Crystal Gardens on Nexus Station had been untraceable, or so she'd thought. Now, somehow, that damned xenobiologist and her alien protector had not only survived the manhunt, but were actively investigating the attack. Worse, her hired bounty hunter had gone silent, his last transmission suggesting he might have switched sides. Nyx's reflection stared back at her from the viewport, a woman in her 40s, with silver-streaked hair and eyes like chips of ice. Corporate espionage had been her life for 2 decades, and she'd climbed to her position as Stellar Dynamics Director of Strategic Acquisitions by being ruthless, efficient, and above all, careful. But this operation had been different from the start, fraught with variables she couldn't control. The Crystalline Collective's home system contained the richest deposits of quantum crystals in known space materials essential for faster-than-light communication and dimensional phase technology. The peace treaty would have opened those deposits to competitive bidding among human corporations. Nyx couldn't allow that to happen. Stellar Dynamics had spent too much establishing their monopoly on crystal tech to let competitors muscle in. Framing Zara Nightwind had been the perfect solution. As the lead xenobiologist on the negotiation team, she had access to the Crystal Gardens and a plausible motive if anyone looked hard enough. The phase displacement explosion would appear to be an accident caused by her research equipment. The Collective would blame humanity for desecrating their sacred site. Negotiations would collapse, and Stellar Dynamics would remain the only human company with existing trade agreements. It should have worked flawlessly. Her private comm channel chimed, and the holographic image of her superior, Stellar Dynamics CEO Magnus Voidheart, materialized before her desk. His cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on her, the machinery clicking with mechanical precision. NYX, I'm receiving troubling reports about our Nexus Station operation. Everything is under control, she replied smoothly. There have been some unexpected complications, but complications? Magnus's voice carried the edge that had made him one of the most feared executives. In corporate space, our asset has vanished with classified intelligence. The target is not only alive, but actively investigating the incident. And now I'm hearing rumors that she's been seen with a Veil Walker. Nix felt a chill run down her spine. She'd heard whispers about the Veil Walker's energy beings that could supposedly read truth in a person's quantum signature. If one of them had bonded with Zara Nightwind, the situation remains manageable, Nix insisted. I have contingency plans in place. See that you do. The board is beginning to ask questions I don't want to answer. Magnus's image flickered as the transmission began to degrade. Clean this up, Nix, permanently, or I'll find someone who can. The connection terminated, leaving Nix alone with her churning thoughts. She'd spent years climbing the corporate ladder, eliminating rivals and obstacles with surgical precision. But this was different. This was personal in a way she couldn't quite define. She'd met Zara Nightwind once, at a xenobiology conference. 5 years ago, the young scientist had presented research on crystal-based life forms with a passion and integrity that Nix had found both admirable and naive. In another life, under different circumstances, they might have been allies. Instead, Nix had been forced to destroy her. The worst part was that Zara had never done anything wrong. She was guilty of nothing more than being in the wrong place, at the wrong time, with the wrong skill set and security clearance. But in the world of corporate espionage, innocence was just another liability to be managed. Nix activated her personal files, pulling up the dossier on Jay Stormheart. The bounty hunter had an impressive record military background, cybernetic enhancements, a 97% capture rate. But his psychological profile noted a strong moral compass that had occasionally interfered with missions. She should have chosen someone more mercenary, less principled. A proximity alarm chimed. Throughout the facility, 3 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, the Whispered Dream, the Iron Resolve, and a Galactic Authority patrol vessel that had been tracking them both. Nix smiled grimly. Perhaps the situation could still be salvaged. She moved to the facility's command center, her heels clicking on polished steel floors. The bridge crew snapped to attention as she entered, their faces reflecting the controlled fear that had made her so effective. Corporate executives who commanded that level of respect rarely got there through kindness, tactical analysis. She ordered 3 vessels in formation, approaching the asteroid mining fields, reported her tactical officer. The Veil Walker ship appears to be guiding them toward the abandoned processing station on asteroid Gamma 7, Nix nodded. Gamma 7 had been one of their first mining operations in the system, shut down when the crystal veins played out. It was currently empty except for automated systems, and her eyes widened with sudden understanding. Bring up the facility records for Gamma 7, she commanded. Specifically, any equipment left behind when we suspended operations. The data appeared on her screen, and Nix felt her heart sink. Among the abandoned machinery was a prototype phase displacement mining laser, the same technology she'd used to create the device that destroyed the Crystal Gardens. If Zara and her alien companion reached that equipment, they could compare quantum signatures and prove her guilt beyond any doubt. Prep the Shadow Strike for immediate launch, Nix ordered. Full weapon loadout, and activate the station's self-destruct protocols, Mum. Her tactical officer looked uncertain. If we destroy the facility while they're investigating, it might appear suspicious. If we don't destroy it, we'll all be facing corporate tribunals for the rest of our very short lives. Nix's voice carried the same deadly calm that had intimidated countless competitors. Sometimes the appearance of guilt is preferable to the certainty of it. As her personal strike ship prepared for departure, Nix found herself thinking again about Zara Nightwind. The woman had shown remarkable resourcefulness in evading capture, and her bond with the Veil Walker suggested reserves of strength that Nix had underestimated. In different circumstances, Zara might have made a formidable ally in the corporate wars. Instead, she would have to die. Nix had learned long ago that survival in the corporate world required the ability to make hard choices without flinching. She'd destroyed careers, eliminated obstacles, and sacrificed others to protect her position. But as she watched the whispered dream approaching the asteroid field on her tactical display, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: doubt. Not about the necessity of what she was about to do. Stellar Dynamics' monopoly was worth billions, and her own life depended on maintaining it. But doubt about whether she could live with herself afterward. There was something about Zara Nightwind's story that resonated with her own buried idealism, the part of her that had once believed in truth and justice before corporate realities taught her otherwise. The shadow strike cleared the facility's launch bay and accelerated toward the asteroid field. Nyx piloted it herself, not trusting anyone else with something this critical. As the ship's weapons systems charged, she opened a calm channel to her targets. Zara Nightwind. She transmitted on all frequencies. This is Director Nyx Shadowbane of Stellar Dynamics. You are trespassing in corporate space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came not from Zara, but from the Veil Walker's musical voice. We seek only truth. Nyx Shadowbane. The same truth you have tried so hard to bury. For a moment, Nyx hesitated. The alien's words carried a weight that seemed to resonate in her bones, as if he could see through all her justifications to the guilt she'd spent years suppressing. But then she remembered Magnus's threats, remembered the life she'd built on the corpses of her enemies, remembered that in the corporate universe, only the ruthless survived. Truth is a luxury I can't afford, she whispered, and locked weapons on the whispered dream. The hunt was about to become an execution, and Nyx Shadowbane was about to discover whether her soul was as dark as the void between stars.